So second game of the Rugby Championship this weekend is done. It's our first proper upset of the Rugby Championship this season. We didn't have to wait too long. The Pumas have taken down the Springboks 32 points to 19 in Mendoza. For the Pumas, it was 2 tries to Dalgi, 1 to Sanchez and 1 to Moyano. For the Boks, it was Kolisi and 2 to Mapu. Another one that's really a game of two halves because the Pumas really put on a lot of points in that first half. The lead chopped and changed a couple of times, but for the most part, it was the Pumas out in front and the Springboks trying to chase them down. It kind of just ran out of time, and perhaps their skills let them down a few times in that one. But like I said, it's chopped and changed. Sanchez got a penalty early. Pollard missed one early. It was a shocker. It looked like he was going to have another terrible night with the boot. But Kolisi got his try, and he had a line break after that as well. He was really kind of leading the charge from the front. It looked like he was going to give the Pumas a very long night. But then it was Dalgi who started doing his business. He got a try in the 18th and then the 22nd minute. And it was just all Argentina. Etzebeth got yellow carded. Sanchez went in for a try. It was just like boom, 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 boom. All the Pumas. And it was shock to the system, like what was going on. I mean, they only scored 7 points during that yellow card when Etzebeth was off. But it was looking pretty ominous for the Boks. They did manage to kind of settle things down, and at halftime it was 27 points to 7. Not an insurmountable lead, but still it's a pretty big job. And then as soon as the second half started, well, it didn't take long, Moyano got his try. So 32 points to 7. It was starting to look like nail in the coffin stuff for the Boks, being so many points behind. I think it was, 25? But they edged away at that lead. It didn't take long for Mapu to get his try. It was pretty much straight after the Moyano try. Mapu got his try. Dianti had one called off by the TMO as a no try. Mapu got his second one in the 64th minute. But then that was it. So they had the lead, 25-point lead down to 18, down to 13. So 13-point lead, you got to score 2 tries. About 15 minutes to go. They had so much of the ball, so much of the territory, but not able to get it done. I mean, if you compare it to the All Blacks and Australia series, the Argentinians did kind of what the Wallabies needed to do in that first game. Was when they had their advantage, they needed to score points and then just hold out for the lead. But the Wallabies weren't able to get that lead. The Argentinians had the lead, and then the pressure was on the Boks to kind of chase it down. There were a few key men for the Pumas and kind of holding things out. I mean, Petty got a couple of line-out steals in those last 15 minutes to really kind of stifle what the Boks were trying to do coming forward. Dalgi had a really good run from his own goal where they ended up, instead of kicking it, and ended up running about 80 metres down the field and putting the pressure back on the Boks. But yeah, the Boks will be so disappointed with that first half effort. I mean, look at the stats. The Springboks had slightly more possession and territory in that first half, but their tackling was only 70%. And the Argentinians weren't perfect at 77, but their scrum was getting such good pay. It was such a turnaround from last week that they were really able to use that as a platform for going forward. So whatever Ledesma did with his boys, his front rowers during the week, it certainly paid dividends because that was a lot of good work from them. I mean, the Argentinians didn't score any points after that Moyano try in the 46th minute. So you felt like that Springbok bench and probably the overall fitness was favouring the Boks. Like, they had so much of the ball in that second half, so many run meters, but all too often their skills let them down. There were forward passes, there were knock-ons, there were, like I said, line-outs not being won on their own ball. It was, it wasn't enough. Their execution at times, but also that Argentinian defense, a combination of those two things, stopped the Boks from being able to get things done. Sanchez had a bit of a masterclass night. I mean, he got a try, he got a drop goal, a kick penalty, conversions. He was kind of everywhere. He's just having one of those nights where pretty much everything went his way. For the Springboks, some of their subs came on pretty early. Like Kitsov came on early and seemed to really stabilise that scrum during the second half. Etzebeth went off pretty early. Dutoy looked good when he came on, as did Snyman. Snyman really looked to add some kind of just spice to what the Boks were throwing going forward. But yeah, didn't end up being enough. Lavanini had a pretty big game defensively, so did the Argentinian props. Aside from their scrummaging work, were pretty solid defensively. Interesting that Faf de Klerk played the whole 80. I mean, there's not many guys who run further than a number 9 during their game, and it is pretty tough work running all that time. I thought maybe Papier would have come on to add some fresh legs. Obviously, Faf is your number 1 scrum half. Shows a bit of a lack of faith in Papier to kind of get the job done, perhaps. Because, yeah, if you've got a backup that you're confident in to bring him on for 20 minutes... fresh legs, like I say, man, you need someone who's going to be able to run. Yeah, I just thought that was interesting. The Argentinians did seem to be slowing the game down in the second half. There was, early on in the second half, the Argentinians had a penalty, and Sanchez walking from where he was to the ball to kick it out was an age. It was an age. So it was clearly a strategy that we're in front, let's hold the lead, conserve our energy, because I guess that was an issue last week as well. And yeah, it seemed to pay off, because in the end the defense was able to hold. Slowing the game down seemed to work for them. I mean, you look at those second half, well, the full-time stats. Possession and territory really shifted out to the Boks. It was 61% possession, 66% territory, so they had that. They had way more run meters. But the tackle stats, the Pumas were up from 77 to 83 by full-time. That's very, respectable, good. You'd be happy if you're a defense coach. Your team is tackling 83%. Boks down from 70, which was bad enough in the first half, down to 64. That's what let them down. That defensive work was just not good enough in this one. Marks was relatively quiet, wasn't able to kind of get turnovers like he did so prolifically last week. And... yeah, there were other guys who stepped up, but yeah, wasn't quite enough. Our penalty count was pretty even, 12 to the Argentinians, 11 to the Springboks, but obviously they had that yellow card, which didn't help their game. But yeah, upset. Where does this leave the Rugby Championship is an interesting question, because you got to think now somebody else has to get a win over the All Blacks. If South Africa had won all their games, and then the All Blacks had won all their games, they perhaps would have met in Pretoria to see if New Zealand had held their game, whether that would be kind of a decider. But now there's a big bit of pressure on for somebody else to get a win over the All Blacks. Otherwise, the All Blacks perhaps are going to run away with it. But yeah, interesting game, man. Very, very good game. As a neutral, it was pretty entertaining to watch. To see one team get in front and the other team just kind of chip away at that lead. With 15 minutes to go, I honestly thought the Boks might be able to do it, but as I said, their skills at times just kind of let them down. There was one moment where Faf de Klerk took a quick tap, and they didn't do much with it. I thought, a bit kind of panic stations perhaps could have settled things down, but yeah, put themselves in a position to get back into it, but not quite enough. Credit to the Pumas. Big effort for them. It's been a while since they've had a victory. Such a turnaround from June. Excellent stuff. Congrats. Springboks got a bit of time to kind of resettle and kind of reshape how things are going to look going forward. But it's going to make that game against the Wallabies a whole lot more interesting. So you guys let me know your thoughts on the game. And yeah, I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.